Guys, this is Russia.
Бомбы, смотри-ка! Бомба же у него там на самолете.
I cannot show you the full video, at least on this platform, but that's the usual view. Yeah, we have some different perspective from this side as well. Those are the long-range Ukrainian drones which are hitting a very important Russian facility. Yeah, guys, it's not the residential building out there. What was hit there is the Russian electronic warfare facility in Chuvashia Republic, Cheboksary. The facility that was kaboomed is called Veneer Progress, and they made lots of the electronic components for Russian drones. For example, they made Kometa M, which helps for the Russian surveillance drones not to be intercepted by anti-drone warfare systems which were supplied to Ukraine or made by Ukraine. And I must say that definitely Kometa M components are best out there in the Russian market. Kometa is the Russian antenna grid bypassing Ukrainian electronic warfare and international sanctions. That's how this electronic system looks like, which helps the Russian drone to be controlled and not intercepted. Also, Russia installed those systems on their Girans. Giran is just a copy of the Iranian Shahid drone with some of the modifications, like for example this one. The products of the factory were openly displayed in multiple exhibitions, so Ukraine knew about the production of those systems in exact facility. It was the open information. And yeah, they use the modification of Kometa M and Kometa units for Orlan 30 and Orlan 10 even drones. Those are the Russian surveillance drones, which I would say are quite effective. In this article, we may say that Russia still uses some of the components made abroad, like in the United States, Japan and India. Somehow they're still able to circumnavigate around the sanctions and have those components in their units. So it's not just Veneer Progress, no. And actually, if you take any kind of the sophisticated sphere of the Russian production, military production including, you'll find the Western-made components. Still, there is a cooperation, it happens behind the curtains, via third countries, but it happens. That's one of the main issues of this war, and that's how Russia gets technologies and spare parts to be used in their drones and even missiles. That's why Ukraine is actually forced to apply its own sanctions on Russian products. While this one was absolutely successful, at least 2 of the drone strikes were reported in this facility. I hope that they will not be able to produce those components any longer, or there will be a huge gap between the production. What is also interesting, that facility is located very far away from Ukraine, roughly 1,000 kilometers. Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's go! Alright guys, we have awesome news. Lots of the Ukrainian prisoners of war returned back to Ukraine. Many of those were jailed in Russian prisons since 2022, since the beginning of the war. I'm very happy at least we see the result of those, some kind of the negotiations between parties, and it's awesome. However, no one tells how many people were exchanged from Ukrainian or Russian sides. Russia and Ukraine this time keep numbers secret. Yes, of course we'll know more in the coming days, but for now I don't know the number. However, there were several of the buses with exchanged Ukrainian soldiers, and I would say that they look below 25 years old. So as it was agreed, maybe wounded personnel was exchanged as well as soldiers below 25 years old. Yeah, Russia also has their prisoners of war back. But what I want to tell you guys, that there were tortures of Ukrainian soldiers. For example, here you can see some sort of the letters as the scars on belly of one of the Ukrainian soldiers. It says "Glory to Russia." Slava России, it's written in Russian just here, plus some extra scar. It is one more evidence of the Russian war crimes. Alright, what we have here is the fragment of the operation of the Ukrainian armed forces conducted with the help of the drone boats. Some of those platforms are still being occupied by Russian Spetsnaz, so quite elite forces of the Russian Federation, but Ukraine found out a way of how to deal with that. Well, basically Ukraine sends the drone boats armed with automatic machine guns and some of the turrets. That's the outcome of one of the strikes of those drone boats. You may see kind of the significant damage down to one of the platforms. I wonder if Russian soldiers are okay out there. My friends, by the way, if you want to support the job that I do here almost daily on my YouTube channel, you're very welcome to join me on Patreon or on membership of the channel. By joining, you motivate me to produce more of the content, not just on YouTube, but on other platforms. And if you don't have the opportunity to support me financially, just press your huge like to this video and also subscribe for the channel, because that is how you promote this video throughout YouTube algorithms. You help a lot. Thank you so much, my friends. Alright, the Ukrainian General Staff Command reported about 2 of the airplane fighter jet losses of the Russian Federation this morning. It happened because of the Ukrainian strike on one of the military airfields in Nizhny Novgorod. They show this kind of the image saying that MiG-31 was lost, which is carrying Russian Kinzhal hypersonic so-called missiles. And they say about 1 Sukhoi 34, or they say that it could be Sukhoi Su-30. The Ukrainian military command says that it happened in Savasleika military airfield. Well, I have some of the images with Ukrainian drones flying in that direction. So definitely some sort of the drone filmed by locals. So Russians film those drone videos, they publish in their city groups, and our Ukrainian channels, like for example Supernova Plus, they take those videos and publish on their platforms, and they help a lot to investigate what happened there. But still, I'm in lack of the images of what airplanes hit there and whether they definitely were hit, but it seems like Ukrainian military command has this information. But for me, I cannot confirm it for now, my friends, without the real evidence of those airplanes being at least wrecked. It is similar to the Cyberweb 2.0 operation, which many say was conducted, as well as the part of the Ukrainian military command, but there is no evidence, as well as over here. Well, I just hope that it will be leaked to internet and I will show you everything on my channel. Well, we have some of the image with the Russian train, but it happened inside Russia. This is Saratov, not far away from Engels, by the way, and it was the train which carried some of the cargo plus military goods. It caught fire. I wonder why and how it happened, and it was just filmed a few hours ago. The video was immediately leaked to the internet. It's not the Cyberweb 2.0 operation. Well, maybe it is also done by Ukraine, who knows, but it could be just a local mishap, which sometimes happen in Russia.
Конечно, после этого граждане требуют, нужно орешникам по Киеву, по Львову, хватит переговоров, и нам...
Yeah, Medinsky, who is the head of the Russian negotiation group, says that Russian citizens demand Oreshnik strikes on Ukrainian cities, including main cities of Lviv and Kiev. He says it's hard for the group because they are there for negotiations, but he understands why Russians want revenge. Well, that so-called revenge was even supported by Donald Trump partially. He stated that Russia has the right to bomb hell out of Ukraine, he says like that. So yeah, one more evidence that Russia doesn't want any sort of the peace and they want to escalate almost, not almost even, but every night Russia launches their strikes on Ukraine. Like for example, it happened the last night, it is happening right now. By the time I'm filming this video, there are lots of the Russian drones in the skies of Ukraine. Yeah, Ukraine shuts down almost everything, but it's getting hard. And also Ukraine is running out of the tools to protect its skies. I mean, air defense, some of the missiles. There was even the scandal sparked because Zelensky officially accused the United States of America of lowering the defense capabilities of Ukraine. So Trump's administration redirects 20,000 anti-drone missiles meant for Ukraine. Zelensky confirms that in his interview that was conducted yesterday.
20,000 between us, 20,000 missiles, anti-Shahid missiles.
I think we are speaking about those missiles APKWS-2. modification. From what I understood, those are air-to-air missiles and could be launched from F-16s. Zelensky says that there was the agreement between Ukrainian side and American side with Biden's administration, but then Donald Trump went to the Oval Office. They decided not to agree on this deal any longer, and they sent 20,000 missiles not to Ukraine. They were already allocated to be delivered to Ukraine, prepared, but instead United States sent those to Middle East. Yeah, this situation is not good for Ukraine at all, because Ukraine already counted on those missiles. Yeah, very bad. But nevertheless, I'm happy that Zelensky tells about it openly, that, okay, we agreed with the United States. Donald Trump, what are you doing? And in general, I understand that it's better to press Donald Trump a little, because that is the strategy actually to win. Not to sugarcoat relations with Donald, not to obey to him, no. You need to press him, as Zelensky, by the way, done already with the mineral deal, which is not profitable for the United States at all. It is profitable for Ukraine, but Zelensky refused to sign a very bad agreement with USA, and only then it was changed, Zelensky signed it. And yeah, we know that Trump always chickens out. Zelensky uses this strategy to push Donald a little, and also I guess China's leader Xi Jinping uses the same tactics. Yeah, Donald may scream in his tweets, but after some time he is taco and you have what you need. The good thing for Ukraine that Israel transferred its Patriot systems to the United States of America, and they will be later on sent to Ukraine. We have this information from Israel's ambassador to Ukraine. He says that we agreed to transfer them to Ukraine. Unfortunately, this hasn't been widely discussed, but then people say Israel hasn't provided military aid. That's simply not true. Well, I hope that Ukraine will get those as soon as possible. The other sources say that Ukraine has already obtained those systems a long time ago. Well, so far this information is fresh and it is hard to judge. Alright, this is kind of the interesting graph. It shows the usage of the Russian tanks out there on the front lines, and as you may see, there are almost no tanks now deployed by Russian army any longer. Just look how low it drops. So Russia is not sending their tanks to the front lines, or they're just out of the tanks. Yeah, they produce some, but they're unable to cover their losses on the front lines. Mostly they attack on modified versions of Hangar BMPs, but mostly they use motorcycles, civilian cars, all-terrain vehicles. Yeah, the Russian army was just annihilated. They had that time, you know, to move with their tanks between 2023 and 2024. It was the time that Ukraine lost Avdiivka and Russia propelled towards Pokrovsk, but now everything is declined to very, very low number. A famous Russian and Soviet tank army is not anymore. So Russia obviously needs lots of the time to compensate their losses during the war in Ukraine if they want to attack some of the other countries. Yeah, I took this video from Magyar channel, and here you can see the Russian tank and BMP, modernized BMP on the back. They were attacked by Ukrainian FPV drones and totally kaputted together with other vehicles. It happened in Pokrovsk direction not long time ago, but those videos are very rare now. At the same time, Mark Rutte, who is the secretary of NATO, says that Russia increased the production of munition, and they are doing it in faster manner compared to the European countries. He also mentioned that if the war in Ukraine is over, Russia could be ready for attacking other countries, including NATO countries, in the record short time, based on their production again. Well, what can I say? I agree with that, actually. I also think that Russia may agree on partial ceasefire for them just to reform their army, to produce more of the equipment and attack Ukraine once again with more force. With Putin in power, at least Russia is not going to end this war. It is already understandable, and President Zelensky said about it during his interview that Putin is not going to quit this war. His political life and maybe even physical life depends on the outcome of the war, and he cannot allow himself not to occupy Ukraine. That's basically the logic of the Russian dictator. Unfortunately, guys, in this case, the war may continue for many more years. That's not just my prediction, but many of the experts say like that. It's not going to be full scale all the time. It's going to be wave up, wave down, but still there will be a hot conflict all the time. which by the way already lasts for 11 years, yeah, since 2014. Then Russia occupied Crimea and started their operation in Donbass, backing up local separatists and sending their own commanders, or Russian citizens. Eventually it all escalated into the full-scale war back in 2022. Alright, I've took this video from the Russian channel. I'll switch on the music for a moment. This is the Ahmad battalion soldier, and he definitely filmed this video with that music. What he has is an RPG. The place where he filmed this video is the Russian town of Sudzha in the Kursk Oblast. You might recall this name. So what he did with this RPG, he fired it towards one of the residential buildings, Russian building, which was abandoned, probably. Where is the logic here? The building, by the way, is located not far away from the Russian Orthodox Church, which despite the fights were not ruined, but because of the Kadyrov soldier, it could be. I told you that I've took this video from the Russian Z channels, and they're very, very angry about this Kadyrovites TikTok soldier. They called for investigation because this territory was liberated by Russians long time ago, and this guy, well, he's doing just a random shit out there, firing RPGs to the Russian buildings. Well, that's Russia how it is, but you know what? This guy is already gone. He's KIA. Yeah, we have the information about it, even with the video. So Russian police tried to detain the guy. You may see this is a Lada with Z symbol on the back. There was the chase. Kadyrovites didn't want to surrender, and finally he hit the random car on the road, which led to the total kaput of the car together with that Kadyrovites, who by the way had his partner near him who also was kaputted. Was it a karma? Well, even Russian military bloggers say that it was. What happened to Orban today? He said that Russia is too weak to attack NATO countries because they cannot handle even Ukraine. He also justified Ukrainian resistance, saying that Ukrainians are fighting like heroes. Plus, he also agreed that negotiations should be done from the position of force. Kind of the strange comments from Orban, I might say, or maybe he was just under impression of the Ukrainian spiderweb operation. He understood that it's better not to be so harsh with the Ukraine, judging on what Ukraine could do potentially. But at the same time, he stated that sanctions should be lifted from Russia because it harms the European Union and Hungary personally. Well, at least here he is stable. What is this? Why do they put their cars over there? Even scooters were dropped on the police. Guys, I don't want to comment a lot on what is happening in LA. Kind of the strange behavior from police as well. Yeah, now there is some sort of the escalation happening, but before it was more or less peaceful. But then Donald Trump decided to deploy some of the National Guards to reinforce the violence, which created more violence in LA. So yeah, the stone drops and American police was forced to leave their vehicles just on the highway. Yeah, the picture is surreal. I do not support that violence, but again, it is coming from both of the sides, and the initial cause of that is Donald Trump with his crazy measures to caught migrants or illegal migrants. Doesn't matter, they don't really care. They caught them elsewhere, and people who usually do that, they wear masks, they do not wear any sort of the uniform, they drive on unmarked vehicles, and obviously many people, they do not like it, and they fight for their rights in the way they think is appropriate. But guys, again, it's just my own personal opinion, you may have your own. On my Telegram channel I already showed this video of how journalist was shot by a policeman. Yeah, this one, he pointed his rifle on her and shot, likely with a rubber bullet only, but rubber bullet may also cause severe wounds. The lady was in pain, she exited the scene, but clearly she was a reporter out there. She was standing there with a microphone, she didn't possess any sort of the threat to anyone. There was the cameraman who was filming her, everything was calm, there was no direct confrontation with police, they were just standing there, and out of nowhere the guy just shot the reporter with a rubber bullet, yes. I think this lady should sue LAPD for their actions. It's unruly actions by United States police forces. It's the shame, it's disgrace of the United States of America, which is happening under the ruling of dictator, or the person who wants to be a dictator, but actually he's just crying little baby Donald Trump. Guys, in the United States, this is what is really happening in your country, not just towards the people of color, but also towards white or pale people. They don't really care. I saw one more video today of how police beating up the man, white man by the way as well, from their horses with sticks. And even from the helicopter image it was understandable that police enjoyed themselves. Yeah guys, actually the police in the United States, in many of the cases it is just crazy. So many of the videos published in internet, judging on those, I would say that they require significant reform in that force sector. Yeah, I don't want to tell about it a lot, but I have this news channel, so I have to tell about what is happening in the United States as well, because that country really influences Ukraine. So according to the latest information, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, it even sounds clownish and crazy, reportedly ordered to deploy 700 Marines to LA. It is not known what authority the Marines will be deployed under, as President Trump still has yet to invoke the Insurrection Act. So the main thing for them is to send more and more army to the place. Well, it may spark more and more violence, actually. Governor Gavin Newsom says that Trump deployed forces, the National Guard, so far without being supplied by fuel, food, or place to sleep. So they stayed in some random place, maybe even airport, or just sleeping on the ground. That's the attitude we see actually from Russia, from Donald Trump. The same. Well, in Russia they also have some sort of the problem with migration, because locals are being replaced by people from the ex-Soviet republics, from Central Asia, from Caucasus. Lots of the Muslims are out there in Moscow. People even call the modern-day Moscow Moskva-Bad. And yeah, one of the Russian veterans on the forum said that they need to fight migration and migrants, he said, which again creates the national division in Russia, because Russia is not the solo nation country. No, there are many of the people from different religions and different cultures. If one of the groups would dictate something, it will spark the conflict. And now they have the military experience and also they have arms. So I would say that the big confrontation within Russia is just imminent. Yeah, Russia says that about the United States of America, but United States is more controlled compared to Russia. Yeah, with Donald Trump there are some of the questions, but still USA is more solid compared to Russia. This is uncomparable. The Russian society is more divided. So yeah, here you go, the Russian nationalist, Russian veteran with the movement against immigrants coming to Russia, to Moscow. But it's already too late for those Russians, because they do not keep majority out there any longer. There was the big Muslim celebration recently, and the streets of Moscow were just crowded with people praying. So Russian nationalists, they do not accept that religion. They want to be a dominant nation out there in Russia. That's, by the way, was ideology of Wagner. Basically, this is Nazism, Nazi ideology, even though they call Ukrainians Nazis. But in fact, Russians want to conquer nearby nations, including Ukrainians, and they want everyone to be their slaves. The guy on that forum, he accused the Brits for implementing those migrants to Russia. I wonder why Brits, but United Kingdom is always like the biggest enemy for Russia. In all of the Russian propaganda shows, they blame United Kingdom. And now, my friends, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot, and also subscribe for the channel. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.